Welcome back, Miners. My name is Amber Johnston, and I'm a counselor here at Student Wellbeing.
And my name is Tracy Kriegel. I'm a counselor here at Student Wellbeing. It's time for your morning cup of joe. So Amber, a couple of weeks back, we talked about the sun and how it affects our mood. After we did that podcast, I got to thinking.
You thinking? Never.
I know, I'm always thinking, but seriously, the weather forecasters have been talking about how dry it's been lately and how badly we need rain.
Right. It's been all over the news, like about how we need rain and how dry it's been. And then it seems like just about the time they say that, then the rain hits and then it's flooded, and it just doesn't ever seem like we have enough or the right amount. Like it's always too much or too little.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I'm sure if we were to interview some of our chemistry or physics or geology majors, they could weigh in their thoughts on this, regarding the weather patterns right now.
Right. You guys heard her. If you want to give some feedback, we have some spots on our website where you can, or any place that our podcast is available, where you can give feedback about anything you hear in our podcast, including comments about the weather and how it affects our mood.
That's awesome. So for example, say you wake up, get dressed, feel good about your day, walk out the door, get to class, sit down in your chair, only to hear the professor say, "Today we'll be taking a quiz over the first 4 chapters of the semester." What do you think happens to your mood, Amber?
Well, I think you instantly go into fight or flight.
Panic!
Yes. So you have this fight or flight. For those of you who aren't familiar, we covered in a previous episode called acute stress response, if you're looking for it. And basically, you have your limbic system panics, and it tells you that you are facing danger. And so when it does that, it causes us to go into fight or flight. And so that means we're either ready to fight the threat or run away from the threat. Well, you can't fight a test. It's a piece of paper. Like, there's not much like fight. It doesn't fight back. Like, not really.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
And it doesn't make sense to run away. So we're kind of stuck with all this nasty feeling inside of us.
Right. Yeah, so, I think each student kind of reacts a little bit different. So some students are completely prepared for it. Mm-hmm. And then there's other students who, they stay completely chill.
Right.
And they breeze through that test or that quiz, and just like it's an ordinary day without any effect on their mood.
Right. And we all wish we could be like that and just be that chill person. But then you also have the other people that are approaching it with fear or anxiety or sometimes even anger. Sometimes you get mad, and you don't know if you're mad at the professor, if you're mad at the test, if you're mad at yourself. Like, you're just mad.
Right. I know, right? I think it really depends on a lot of factors if we could connect with being that chill student, right?
I think this will be an extremely long podcast if we had to describe all the reasons why one student might be more relaxed and more chill or handle stress a little bit better than another. I think that's too much to cover in one podcast.
Hence the reason moods can be unpredictable at times. Now, what I'd like to bring to the table today is a technique on how to bring some stability to our moods.
Oh, fantastic. Wait, is this going to require me to take a pill or lie down on a couch and tell somebody my life story, kind of like Dr. Katz, Freud style?
I appreciate your comments, Amber, but many times people have an image in their minds that if they want to change their moods, they have to be forced to take a medication or go to see a counselor that will make them feel unvalidated and unsafe.
Right. Counseling has changed a lot, but it seems like a lot in pop culture that the images that it shows of counseling are often not very accurate and show some kind of antiquated ideas. And so when it comes to a person's well-being, and as I explain to my students when they're coming to see a counselor, you're coming to a safe space to talk about your story. And this is your space, and you're in control of what you share and when you share it and how much of it you share. And the offices here at Student Wellbeing are all calm and welcoming, and as far as I know, none of them have any couches.
I agree. And yesterday we went over to student health, and I found the space over there was so welcoming and it was so kind.
Yes.
And meeting the doctors over there, Dr. Dodd and Dr. Tracy and all of them, they were also very kind and welcoming too. So I appreciate that space over there. I thought that was very comforting too. And I don't think any of them would probably expect anybody to just get up on the table and just lay down. I think it's going to be a welcoming space as well for the students there. So, but Amber, I've also found it important to let our students know, and others that I've worked with, that if a medication is indicated, working with your healthcare team is important whether it's mental or physical well-being. In a nutshell, I put it this way, because when it comes to your mental well-being, there's a lot of unknowns, but it's kind of like this. If you have diabetes and need insulin, if your pancreas is not producing the right amount of glucose, would you seek medical attention and take medication? It's kind of a no-brainer, right?
Right.
But most people I speak with are pretty agreeable to that. But then I discuss, if you were depressed or if you were anxious and your serotonin was not functioning properly in the brain, would you want to seek a healthcare physician to discuss your options regarding a medication that would help you achieve better life balance?
Right. And I like to use the example of like a broken leg, because if your leg is broken, you wouldn't say, "Oh, I'm going to white knuckle my way through this and just and handle it for the rest of the semester."
Right.
Your leg's not going to work, right? It's broken.
Okay. Yeah.
And instead you would go to a doctor and they would set it and they would treat it, and they might give you medication if it was appropriate. They might do some physical therapy if that was appropriate. There's a variety of different sources. So there's the diabetes references. That's a fantastic one. Another way to look at it as well. There is not a whole lot of difference when you look at mental health concerns versus medical. They both have to be treated seriously.
I agree. And that's where we have to fight that stigma that mental health brings, to help others know that if you're struggling with mood fluctuations, whether you're dealing with feelings of anxiety or depressive symptoms, if you have no motivation and you've been struggling with no motivation, you just don't feel like you can go to classes, or if you've been missing a lot of classes, you're struggling with not being able to sleep, or you're just super, super anxious, and you found that you can't, when you get in to take those tests, that the anxiety is preventing you from taking tests, those are symptoms that, maybe it's time to seek out student well-being and let us help. We're counselors. We're here to help you. Don't feel like you can't come here and talk to somebody and work through that. Don't feel like you can't go to student health and talk to one of the doctors over there. That's what we're all here is to talk to you about. So I think that's so important. So moving forward, I think we know that there are going to be students and people who don't seek assistance for mood fluctuations, just like people who complain about the weather and are unable to embrace it and mumble and complain about that pop quiz. But what we can't do is deal with the instability, or what I'm going to like to call that lack of rain.
Well, if we were to look at this from a literal sense, everybody listening is probably answering just add rain and a solution to the problem, right? Well, kind of, sort of. It's just not that simple, because we know that there are still residual problems that may be unresolved when it only rains a little bit, and we need adequate rain and extended periods of consistency in order to provide those long-term benefits. We can't just have rain one time and then everything be okay. If the ground's too dry, it's not going to get absorbed, and now it's going to flood. So we have to have that consistent, right amounts of rain over time that's really going to help it like sink in and do what we need it to do. But that's not what we're referencing here.
Yeah, that's right, Amber. We're looking at the meaning of how do we bring a lasting change to people's ability to cope with life's ups and downs. Just like the earth, we got to have that consistent, continual, weather pattern to feed the earth, so the crops can grow. But just like people, we need consistent coping skills to make life more meaningful. And from the metaphorical sense, that's where rain is so important.
okay, you got me. What is rain in a metaphorical sense? Like, how do you metaphorically rain?
I'm really glad you asked. So, because I'm sure our listeners are out there going, what?
What's metaphorical rain?
What is metaphorical rain? So, RAIN is an acronym, but RAIN is actually a meditation technique for working with difficulties. So, in other words, RAIN is a coping skill that helps us by effectively tuning into our inner world and creating a pause between the stimulus of the outside world and our reaction. So RAIN is that acronym that was created 25 years ago by a teacher by the name of Michelle McDonald to ease emotional confusion and suffering.
So it's kind of that emotional regulation kind of stuff?
Yes, it's actually emotional regulation technique. So when a negative or an agitated feeling arises, we pause, remembering the 4 steps cued by the acronym, and we begin to pay attention to what is happening for us. So I'm going to tell you what that acronym stands for and give you just the basics. And at the end, in this actual podcast, we're going to provide you that link. And in the link, there's actually a YouTube place you can go to so that you can actually submerge yourself into the RAIN experience. And the nice thing is if you want to do that, then you can find out how effective RAIN can be in your own personal life. So, which I think is going to be awesome. If we had enough time, we could do it here, but we don't have enough time for today's podcast. So the first piece of RAIN is the R, to recognize what's happening, which I think is the key in every coping skill. That's identifying the trigger. So what is happening with you? And first we have to acknowledge consciously the thought, the feelings, and the behavior that are affecting us. Would you agree with that, Amber?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first thing we have to do. Mindfulness of body sensations, emotions, and thoughts can raise awareness that we are experiencing stress, dis-ease, and suffering. So it's just like if you were going into that test and that professor says, okay, having a pop quiz today, there's going to be students who just get mad, get angry, and are going to be so upset with that professor that he brought on that pop quiz. If that's you, recognizing that you're projecting anger towards the professor when in fact the professor's just trying to gain understanding of what your knowledge is of the subject. He's not out to get you by no means. So recognizing the thought, recognizing the emotion, acknowledging consciously that you're upset, and bringing recognition to that.
Well, and I think the important distinction here is that we do so when we recognize, we do so without judgment. Because there's so much of us that says, oh, I'm panicking, I have anxiety. Oh man, I always have anxiety. I'm terrible for anxiety. I'm going to end up failing this test because I'm panicking right now. Like this whole dialogue goes through our head and we get caught up in it. And that part of this process is just that recognizing without judgment. Oh, I'm feeling some anxiety. Okay, well, I'm going to note that. I'm feeling some anger. Let me note that. I'm feeling some tension in my shoulders. Let me note that. And kind of go through your 5 senses and note them. I go into a similar technique in the, Nathan and I covered in the episode about mindfulness. Like there's a mindfulness technique that's similar, and it's the same way. You just want to notice what the body feels.
Right, exactly. So I think this is key. So first part of RAIN is to recognize what's happening. Just call it out. The second part of the acronym is A, allow. Simply pause with the intention to relax our resistance to the experience, letting our experience, including thoughts, emotions, and feelings, be just what it is without pushing anything away. Between what happens and how we react to it, there's a space. However small, allowing is relaxing in the presence of what is difficult without reacting to it. So allowing ourselves to just let it be. And that's hard for a lot of people because we fight the experience. So coming back to that test, that pop quiz, allowing ourselves to experience the emotion and sit with it for a second.
Right. And when your fight and flight is activated, that's kind of hard because you want to either run away from that emotion or you want to be angry, because it's easier to be angry than feel some of those feelings.
Yeah. And this is where that, coming back to that recognition and then allowing it. And so coming back to the next part of the acronym, which I love this, is the investigate. So all you criminal minds people out there, this will hit home for you guys. Being curious, and this is the great part, yet compassionate for ourselves, and simply noticing how you feel and react to a stimulus or trigger. Ask questions like, what do I believe about this? How does it make me feel? What does it need?
Absolutely.
Many times we don't even recognize, how am I feeling? Okay, I had a pop quiz. What did I do? How did I react? What was I thinking? What did I believe about that? If we take time to step back for a minute and pause, really look at what the reaction was. And I know this is this example I used, but this can apply to so many areas of our life.
Oh, yes. That made me angry. Why did that make me angry? We have to look into, sometimes it isn't just what we're feeling, it's kind of looking underneath and figuring out why, because sometimes we have unexpected reactions. Oh, that made me feel sad. Well, I wasn't expecting to feel sad. What's there?
Yeah, and I like the part about the investigation part is, what does it need? And so what did it need? What did that emotion need? So when you really investigate that, when I was angry about that pop quiz, what did that emotion need?
Right.
When you really tether that out, where did that anger come from? Was it driven by the fact that in the past, when I've had pop quizzes, that there was that emotional need to react because I've ended up doing bad in the pop quizzes? Or was it because I wasn't preparing myself,
right,
by doing the work that was needed to help me be prepared for the pop quizzes? So if professors have said, read the 4 chapters, and I've been the person who just, I don't need to read the 4 chapters. But in high school, you were just able to absorb the literature. But now that you're in college, maybe you're not absorbing the literature. Sometimes things come naturally to us in high school, whereas when we're in college, it doesn't come as natural to us. We've got to study a little bit harder. So maybe we're angry because we have to study a little harder.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe it's messing with how we see ourselves, because we see ourselves as being, we've got our image of self as this person that doesn't have to study, that it comes easy to, and now that we're having to work, it's shaking this whole core belief of who we are. And a lot of times when we start looking at why we're feeling things, it opens up this whole world of thoughts that we didn't know were there. I always call our emotions like dashboard lights on a car. They're not inherently good or bad. They're just letting us know the status of where the car is. And that's kind of where our emotions are. So if my check engine light is on, then that doesn't make my car bad. It just means that I need to check and see why my check engine light is on.
Right. Yeah. The little wrench came on my car the other day.
Right.
And I got to looking at it and I thought, what does that indicator mean? It just was the indicator light that, hey, it's almost time for oil change. But if I would have ignored that,
it would have been bad.
It would have been bad. It could have been bad eventually. So when the indicator light comes on, we have to pay attention, just like what is that telling you that you need? And so we have to pay attention to those points. But many times emotions rise up in us and we just push them aside.
Oh, yeah. It's not convenient.
Yeah, it's not convenient. But over time, as we push our emotions aside, they build up. And this is where anxiety comes from. This is where depression comes from. This is where sleep disorders come from. This is where eating disorders come from, and this is where heart disease comes from. This is where all these things come from over time. Now, of course, there are genetic, that play in place for many times, but I think this is where this investigating comes into and it becomes so important for people. It's like, what's happening with my body? What's happening with my mind?
Yes. So, going back to the car reference, it's like a light pops up in your dashboard like it did for you. Yeah. And if I don't investigate it, it's like me taking a piece of black electrical tape and covering up that light and just ignoring it. Is the car going to run for very long?
People do that. That's great.
People do it. Yeah, like Big Bang Theory, Penny in Big Bang Theory does it. And it drives Sheldon crazy.
Yep. Check engine lights on. Cover that up.
Just cover it up. I don't want to see it. But how much do we do that with our own emotions?
Yes.
Like we do it. We ignore what's happening. And we put that little piece, and then our car breaks down and we're like, why? Why did it break down? Like, what happened? I don't understand. Well, it's because we didn't process those feelings. And so it's not a bad thing. It just means we've got to do this investigate what's happening.
What's happening. Yeah, I agree with that. So good. And the last part of the acronym is N, which stands for non-identification or natural awareness, which comes from not identifying or getting caught up in the experience. This step is the best one. We simply rest in our own natural loving awareness. And to get here, the other steps have to be intentionally completed. So, natural awareness comes from being in tune with yourself. Too many times people just push themselves away, and aren't aware, just kind of following up on exactly what we just, brought out. Being aware of who we are, what we are, what drives us. And we can get so busy that we don't even recognize that, oh, wait, there's some problems here.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I think it's important to just take a minute, do some self-evaluation, pay attention to what your body is telling you. Well,
I know you've probably experienced this. How often, and for you guys to have a little bit better reference of what this is like, I like to liken it to, have you ever been so busy you forgot to eat?
Yes. Hear that frequently.
And then you hit the middle of the afternoon and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm ravenously hungry. I haven't eaten all day. That's you doing that piece where you're not making a judgment. You're just kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm feeling this. This is what I need to do to fix, to resolve it.
Yeah. So every phlebotomist out there who's going to hear me say this will just be so thankful. But how many times have you gone and given blood? And the phlebotomist, and you say, oh, you're a hard stick. Or, and the phlebotomist will say, well, I can't find your veins. And they'll ask you this question, well, have you drank enough? And they'll say, well, you probably haven't, you're not hydrated. And the person, you'll say to them, oh, I drink plenty of water. And then you're thinking in your head, well, maybe I haven't drank enough water. But you're trying to justify to yourself that, well, maybe, yeah, I have. I've drank plenty of water. And the phlebotomist is over there saying, yeah, they're completely dehydrated because I can't see any veins. But you're justifying for yourself, I drink plenty of water. Yeah, I have. Or I drink lots of soda. But reality is the phlebotomist is over there going, this person is completely dehydrated. But we're not self-aware enough to know that we are completely dehydrating ourselves. But if you become self-aware enough to know that if you're hydrating yourself, your veins are the true story to knowing you're hydrated.
Yes.
And so the phlebotomists who are out there listening to this are going, yes, we know when you are hydrated because when we go to stick you, we can read it through your veins. But that's becoming fully aware and being able to be honest with ourselves that hydration is important,
right.
But being body aware, our body tells the true story when we try to not be honest with ourselves.
Right. And I hear that all the time with sleep too. Sleep. That's another one. Oh, I get plenty of sleep, solid 4 or 5 hours every night. Oh, that's not nearly enough. You've got to get into that 7 to 9 hours for it to be sufficient. No wonder you're feeling run down. No wonder you can't focus. No wonder you're feeling stressed. That's a piece of it. It's a piece of that puzzle. You get so busy, going back to the car analogy, you get so busy driving the car and where the car is going that you're not paying attention to the condition of the car.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so then we get that piece in nutrition. So sleep, nutrition, hydration. I look at it as a triangle. You can't make the triangle complete if you don't have sleep, hydration, and nutrition. And so that leads to students who can't focus, higher anxiety, and depression. And so, you might have, when you were at home and functioning at home, mom made nutritious meals, or at least there were consistent meals. You had the better opportunity to stay hydrated. Your sleep schedule was regulated because you always had to get up at school, to go to school at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you were at school till 3:30. And now you're in college and your schedules are varied. Everybody from freshmen to seniors to graduate students, not so much graduate students because they're working, from the 8 to 9 or 8 to 5, or, some of them I hear are working 12 to 14-hour days. So they have a huge rigorous schedule. So they're overworked, some of them, So it's like we don't have a great balance a lot of times. And so finding that triangle balance of sleep, hydration, nutrition can help with mood fluctuations. So bringing the technique of RAIN is so important because it's a meditation coping skill. And so what it does is it helps diffuse the internalized emotions that help students release the stress and anxiety they're coping with. So what we find is that they help us to cope with the difficulties of life, center ourselves, and deal with those emotional dysregulations.
Right. Meditation is a fantastic tool. I know it's kind of a loaded statement for some people, but really what it is just bringing ourselves back and centering ourselves for a short period of time, so that we're in this moment instead of worrying about something that's going to be 2 weeks ago or 2 weeks from now, or something that's happening there that already happened 2 weeks ago. And instead of worrying about everything that's in the past or in the future, we're just in this minute, in this second, right now. What's my body doing? And that's what this is taking you through, is where am I at? What am I feeling right now? And why am I feeling it?
Right, exactly. I couldn't agree more. So, meditation provides more than just RAIN in the metaphorical sense, meaning that inner calmness and emotional regulation can be improved through application of the RAIN technique. And if you'd like to learn how to incorporate RAIN into your daily routine, like I said earlier, we're going to include it in the comments. So we're going to also be offering a group this fall that will focus on meditative practices that will help with emotional regulation. So if you find that this semester you're struggling with anxious thoughts or anxiety, panic attacks, you're having difficulty with thought disruptions, or feeling depressed, unmotivated, and maybe you just want to connect with being more centered, just feeling more at ease with yourself. The name of the group is going to be the Positive Mindfulness Program. So if you'd like to sign up for that group, please contact Student Wellbeing to join, and we'd love to have you join that group.
Well, Miners, as always, it's been a pleasure to bring you the topics of interest on our mental health. If you have a topic that you would love to see covered, or something that you've got questions about, leave us a comment or you send us an email. Reach out and we will see what we can do to get it covered as soon as possible and get it published on the site. We hope that this gives you a little glimpse into ways to improve your mental health and live a little bit happier on a daily basis.
All right, so let the rain fall.
We will have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
For more information about mental health and wellness, contact Student Wellbeing at 204 Norwood Hall. And you can also give us a call at 573-341-4211.
The song Happy Days is brought to us by music from www.free-stock-music.com. You can also add and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook using our handle at S&T Wellbeing.